This is Coda Radio, episode 49, for May 13th, 2013. Everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode's brought to you by our fine sponsor, GoDaddy.com. I'll tell you more about them as the show goes on. This episode was live over at jblive.tv Monday morning. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our amazing host, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say, Mr. East Coast. I'm good.
That's right.
You know, I should say, this is usually our weekly show taking a pragmatic look. Not so pragmatic this week. We're kind of going to go into crystal ball mode, and you can't always be a pragmatist when you're going into crystal ball mode.
That's right. We're just going to do it tarot card style.
Yeah, I mean, just full disclaimer. Yeah. We're going to look into our crystal balls and see what we might think is coming out from Google I/O, which kicks off this week, and then, of course, I'm sure we'll do kind of a follow-up and score ourselves and see how we did next week.
I predict an F.
We'll see. We'll see. You know what we were better at last year was predicting how things would play out from all the stuff that was announced. I think we actually fared pretty well. So we'll see. We'll see.
Did we? I don't remember. But
Cube.
Okay.
Google Cube. I'm the Q. I can just hang my hat on the Q for
the Q.
Yeah, I can hang my hat on that.
We have feedback. It's more important.
All right. Okay. You're right.
Q hatred.
All right. Well, the first one this week, we got a few that came in. In fact, one that just came in under the wire. But Luke, since you just got that under the wire, you have to wait till the end. The first this week, we're going to start with Daniel, and Daniel wants to know about a VPS on the cheap. He says, "Hi, can you recommend a cheap VPS service? I would like to write a website in Python and Django, and perhaps in another Python framework, but as far as I know, GoDaddy's regular web hosting for about $8 or so isn't very flexible and isn't enough to run Django. Amazon's EC2 is light, small, and Linux instances cost about $25 minimum per month, which is too much for me as a student who only wants something basic to play around with. Dreamhost, on the other hand, is the cheapest VPS, costs around $15 a month. But are there any better alternatives than that? Or would it be easier to look at Ruby on Rails instead, perhaps with GoDaddy? I haven't really committed myself to anything yet, but I'm curious what cheap platforms are available. Perhaps a VPS? I need to get a domain from GoDaddy too, right? Thanks, Daniel."
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you're really asking, right? Because if you're not actually doing a project that is going to be a product or some project that you're going to publicize, if you're just playing, you don't even need to buy a domain name. And you don't need to get a VPS. Heroku, Azure, that Java one that Ben Moore shared last week, and I even think EC2 and Rackspace still have free tiers, right? And those are all different types of solutions. If you really want to learn how to admin a server, then you can use a free tier on EC2 or Rackspace. If you are just interested in playing around with some software, Heroku's free tier you can do a lot with.
Yeah.
Both Python and Ruby.
You know, when I read through, so a couple of things. I mean, here's the thing, is it sounds like he hasn't really locked into what he wants to do. I mean, he's talking about jumping between Python frameworks, and then, depending on the VPS package, he's willing to throw all that out and go with Ruby on Rails. And it just seems like he's kind of all over the board. And the one thing is, when you're at this stage, I think there's a lot of exploring still to be done. So I wouldn't necessarily go with something that locks him into a certain sort of strict path, like EC2 can potentially when you go with the cheaper routes. But I would say overall, I think Daniel is focusing on the tools and not actually focusing on what the hell he wants to do. And the reason I say that is because if he's willing to bounce around like this, then I would almost even wonder if he's established what he wants to accomplish, because it seems like once you get a firm grip on what you want to accomplish and what you want to do, then you start like what tools you're going to use, what language you're going to use, those start answering themselves, and then it kind of becomes obvious what provider you can go with. And, I think sometimes people have a tendency to just decide, oh, I'm going to make a project, and then they focused down on the tools so much that they never really get to the actual project.
And also, Daniel, are you trying to me, it seems like you're trying to bone up on a skill. Are those development skills or are those admin skills? Because if you're just a pure developer, you really don't need the VPS if cost is an issue, as I take it is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the student thing is an issue.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's aren't places that have discounts for students. I would think so. But I would
Well, the
say,
thing is, with any of these platform as a services, he could do Django or Rails
yeah.
or even Java Play
But see,
for free.
I like the idea of him using it, going with the VPS, just because then he can install different stuff, he can experiment, he can wipe it out. I mean, it sounds like he's just at that stage where he needs to play.
Well, there are. The problem is he also mentions that about $15 a month is a problem.
Yeah.
And it's definitely going to be harder to get a VPS below that.
All right, here's what he does. He starts speculating on Bitcoin, and after about 6 months, he goes and gets... No,
Do not listen to this advice.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Moving on. But good luck, Daniel. Let us know how it shakes out, what you end up doing, and then... and also, Daniel, if you have an idea of a little more specifics on what you want to accomplish, like what the goal is, what you want to build, then I think we could also probably give you a little more insights there. All right.
So,
go ahead.
I got it. So Sean writes in sharing polycode.org, which is a collection of open source game tools. Now that's very interesting. You can code on either Lua or C++. I have never used this, but it does look pretty interesting. He goes on to explain that it looks to be an open alternative to Unity.
Huh.
So this might be something folks who want to use a more open source tool would definitely go for.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's always fun. Lua is always popular with you game dev guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Huh.
Isn't it interesting whenever, I mean, I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this, but isn't it interesting whenever something kind of successful like Unity comes along, there's often an open source sort of alternative that sprouts up, and sometimes eventually supersedes, but often doesn't, but always, for at least temporarily, kind of fractures the market a little bit.
Well, I'm not sure how much fracturing this is doing. I mean,
yeah. It looks actually really good, doesn't it?
Oh, looking at the site, it does look very impressive.
Publish your app directly from the ID to all supported platforms if you're using Lua only. Polycode creates its own app format called PolyApp, which contains all of your code and assets and wraps into a platform-specific player. The C++ API is cross-platform as well, and of course, you don't need to compile it yourself. Huh.
That could be compelling.
This actually, you know what? This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the Unity licenses can be quite costly.
Yeah, and Unity has proven there is a demand for this, and now maybe the free ecosystem can provide an alternative that we all can get access to. All right, well, thanks, Sean. That was a great one, and you guys can check that out at polycode.org. And by the way, he also mentions that last week's call-in episode was awesome. He always loves hearing from the community. That was a lot of fun.
That was a very popular episode.
Yeah. You know, we just every 10 episodes or so, we should do that.
Yeah.
All right, should I read Zane's email?
Go for it.
Zane writes in to correct a grievous error on our part. He says, "Hey guys, I just saw the last call-in show from episode 48, and just wanted to point out a quick correction. You guys mentioned how you could not use JavaScript and QML to make applications in Qt without using C++ for logic. Actually, you can. It's not that bad at all. You lay out the UI in QML, import the JavaScript you need for the logic, and call those functions in your QML."
All right, so I'm going to stop you right here, Zane. Never said it wasn't possible to do apps in general in JavaScript and QML.
Boom!
We did say that for certain levels of complexity, it's not really efficient.
Are they serious?
We also said there's a few... Hey, Barack, you sit the hell down. We also said that there are certain types of functionality that maybe for performance reasons, C++ is a better choice.
Yeah.
So this is one of those weird issues that I got into a recent discussion about this regarding Ruby Motion, the very, very stupid idea of writing OS 10 apps in Ruby.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we can do everything you can do in Objective-C. Yes, at a 50% performance loss. So we could name virtually any API and you can hit it. But the problem is, once you get to a certain level of complexity, the quote lower level language is going to be better. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use QML and JavaScript. In fact, I would not use C++ if I didn't have to for any project, right? Because there's an inherent complexity there. There's an inherent maintenance. And also, if I need to get help, it's a lot more expensive and a lot harder for me to find people to help me with C++ than, say, JavaScript or Java. Just, it's there are going to be cases, and if you build something big enough, JavaScript isn't going to do it. Now, this statement may be time sensitive. This may not be true in 3 months, right? There's all kinds of work on the JavaScript engines. There's all kinds of work, particularly in the QML project, in Qt or Qt. Which did we decide was the correct one?
I believe the project people would like us to call it cute.
Q.
Cute. Like a cat, like a kitty, like an adorable kitty.
They are pushing JavaScript, right? So perhaps this is one of those situations where in 3 months, what me and that, and I'm sorry for forgetting your name, but me and the caller were discussing, won't be true anymore. But to date, C++ is still going to be more performant, and in some cases, the only choice.
Zane also just mentioned that you can do local storage in QML with JavaScript using key resource files. However, our caller wasn't able to do that, and he suggests that perhaps that was because our caller was using Sublime Text instead of Qt Creator, which Qt Creator will build those resource files for you. He says
Sublime Text, so
he says he also enjoys the call-in shows.
So that's interesting about the local storage. That's a good correction, Zane.
Yeah.
It's a little strange that you need to use their editor, but
maybe for now, right?
Well, that leads to a horrible Xcode discussion that we just don't want to get into.
Okay. Well, speaking of Xcode, that our next email just under the wire came from Luke.
How is that related?
Well, doesn't he mention Xcode in here? Oh, maybe, you know what? I've read so many of the emails this week. I don't.
Fair enough.
I thought, he doesn't maybe, but I don't know. If we would have gone with it, nobody would have noticed. Nobody would have noticed. You see? You threw me off.
He's a jackass.
All right, moving on.
Thank you.
Brock, get out of here, man. I don't even know why I leave that mic open. Luke writes, Michael doesn't like CoffeeScript. And I'm not certain I do either. It doesn't seem like a critical abstraction that needs to be made, in my opinion. No H in that. However, as I level up in coding, I keep running across all these coders, particularly in the OS X land, who are, here it is, ding ding, who are all about Xcode and using the drag and drop UI editors to associate code to widgets, and so on. For my part, this too feels like another layer of abstraction, but it seems to be the way to go according to a ton of people. Aside from the fact that I just find this approach to be creating a UI as confusing as hell, and really this is more of a general question about abstraction than anything else, at the end of the day, if you're just getting the work done by abstracting certain things away, is it generally worrying too much about abstraction as a thing to avoid, just a stumbling block? How does one determine when to make the trade between abstraction versus sitting down with gedit and just making code?
Well, that's a meaty topic in itself. So I would say it's a value decision for you personally, right? So for me, the abstraction of CoffeeScript is unnecessary because I think it's stupid. But the abstraction that Interface Builder gives me is acceptable because it saves me so much time.
Right.
If I had to manually code all those UIs.
Right. That is the thing, isn't it? That's the key thing.
And to be fair, I do not lean on Interface Builder as much as a lot of iOS devs, only because things can get really, really weird with storyboards now. And for certain types of things, it's just easier to write it in Quartz or in usually not OpenGL. Quartz is now a layer of abstraction above OpenGL, right?
Right.
So any language it's a little hard to talk about abstraction because if you're not writing in binary, you're writing in abstractions, right? C is an abstraction.
Right.
I would say it's up to you. Now, there is a point when you can get into too much abstraction, and that's what I feel CoffeeScript does. Though I am going to take another look at it because I've had a number of people that I know personally and are very good developers tell me that it is the way to go.
Oh, really? Do they have why?
They say even despite some of the problems, it's actually, even if you already know JavaScript, there is an efficiency gain.
Okay.
But you have to go all into it.
Okay.
Now, if just to go back about 20 episodes, my argument against CoffeeScript is a lot of developers who don't really understand how prototype inheritance works and some of the other JavaScript specific issues work are using CoffeeScript. And then when there's a problem, you have to go down and deal with JavaScript.
Yeah.
And they don't really know what the hell they're doing. And they get into this weird situation where they're lost, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's obviously popular, right? It's the default in Rails now. A lot of people are using it out here in New York, and I hate the name Silicon Alley. I don't know why they gave themselves that name, but CoffeeScript is pretty damn popular. TypeScript, however, is not. Sorry.
Are you syncing devices over there? What's going on over there?
No, I was trying to do a drum roll sound.
Oh, here, let me. No, that's no good. Sorry, I got
That's
nothing.
not good.
No.
Just taking a shot at TypeScript.
I have a
Computer, what happened?
Nope.
Thank you. No, but yeah, it's moving to the point. It's up to you, right? You have to pick what abstractions are acceptable. And also when you're working on a project, please don't be the guy who's like, oh, you're using interface builder.
What about the fact that things like these abstraction layers, they change over time and they are kind of moving targets. So like you.
So that's the problem when the abstraction layer starts to leak, right? They call it a leaking abstraction.
Yeah.
Great example. You can download old helper libraries for OS X on GitHub even that don't necessarily match the newest APIs.
Right. Oh,
So you
absolutely.
You have to do all these crazy hacks around it.
Yeah.
It's a leaky abstraction.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something I think we'd be open to hear people's thoughts on if they want to email the show. Just go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and hit that contact link and then choose Coder Radio in the dropdown or email coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.
And if anyone has like a symbol, like a drum cymbal sound clip, we'd love that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Did it like something like real, but something epic.
Yeah, something epic, yeah.
Yeah. You could also start a thread in our subreddit over at coderradio.reddit.com, and then other people could chime in there, and then that's real nice and easy because we don't have to go copy and paste it into Slexy.
Because we're lazy.
Yeah. All right, so that's the feedback, right? For this week, should we take a little break here and thank our sponsor?
That's right. I think I have a text here from Danica, actually.
Oh yeah. Does the text contain the term tech or not tech?
Nope, definitely
No.
doesn't contain that term.
Does it start with coder and then end in 249?
It does indeed.
Yeah, that's our promo for this month. Coder 249 will get you a .com for $2.49. But I was thinking of was it Shane? He was looking at VPS services and something that might help because GoDaddy has some great VPS services. And the thing I love about these is later on, if you start working with other people on your project, you can delegate out control and management of these systems without having to give your username and password to them. They can just log in with their own account, and you can add management capabilities to them and remove them later on. What's great is if you start to work with other people, because eventually they always end up wanting access to something. So when you're over there, we do have another code. We have the Coder 249 if you want to get a .com for $2.49. But look, if maybe this is the first time you've bought something and you're starting with these VPSs, use the code GO32OFF4. It'll take 32% off the price. And then you're getting down to a pretty good price for that VPS. It's a pretty good deal. And they've got CentOS, which is probably what I would recommend you go with. Fedora. But if you're like Mr. Dominic, they've even got Windows. I don't know if I can recommend that, but if you want to do that, you can. But I could say go with CentOS. What?
You do one Azure deployment. Whoa.
I'm just saying. But if you want to take 32% off, you can just use the code GO32OFF4. Thanks to GoDaddy for sponsoring the show, and thanks to all of you who are using those codes. Keep sponsorship in Coder Radio. We really appreciate that. So Coder 249 for $2.49 and GO32OFF4 over at GoDaddy.com. Thanks to GoDaddy. I'm just saying, Michael, I wasn't trying to pin you or to stereotype you as a Windows guy.
The ad read got polluted.
Turned nasty.
Turned nasty right in the middle.
I don't know what happened. I'll email them about that and ask them why they put that in there.
I got to see these scripts.
Sometimes Danica likes to just stir up trouble. That's what it is.
Seems awfully strange for her to go out of her way like that.
Well, sometimes Danica's a little...
It's negative in the freedom dimension.
All right,
but you know what? That's a fair point, Chris. I've been getting a lot of... first of all, I need to learn how to turn that off in Google Chat still. A lot of instant messages.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you're a Windows guy now. I have one Azure instance running. I don't think that qualifies. It's like the dude who has VMware on his machine with an Ubuntu box.
I think
the Linux guy.
I think they heard you talking about Windows 8 on the pre-show.
I didn't get it just now.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've been getting them for a few weeks, but let's.
You ready to put your crystal ball front and center and begin conjuring up predictions?
Android and Windows Phone 8 merge. No, nothing.
Well, I think there might be a few patent issues preventing that.
Just a few.
So it starts May 15th, which is 2 days from now.
Yes.
And they're doing something different. They're consolidating their keynote into one 3-hour monster.
Which is good, though, because it was obnoxious to watch all of them last year.
People think that might mean they're going to focus in a little bit and sort of just talk about the essentials. which is kind of funny. It's still 3 hours.
And I think we should describe exactly what Google I is for folks who may not know, right?
Right, because it's not necessarily a big product show.
It's really, you know what? I shouldn't probably say this, but I prefer Google I/O to most of the competing conferences.
Like WWDC?
Because I don't have to consider going to California. They stream it live.
Oh, that is really nice, huh?
I can see the sessions.
Yeah.
The sandwich.
I know.
Pause it.
It's like it's 2013 for their keynote. I like that a lot. I agree with you.
It's really nice. And also the keynote's obviously a marketing thing, but once you get past the keynote, it's pretty legit developer support without a lot of showmanship, shall we say?
Well, you remember how Larry Page jumped from an airplane?
That was the keynote.
Okay, but I mean, that is some damn showmanship.
Okay, I said after the keynote.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, you're right, after the keynote. But I've actually heard the same about WWDC, that you actually get to go down and, talk to the guy in Apple who's, responsible for...
Those are different. Those are the engineer labs at WWDC.
Okay.
But the actual sessions, I'll give you a hint. If you've ever seen the iCloud session from last year, you would have gotten a very different idea of iCloud. You might have come out thinking it would work.
Okay.
I am going to lose that developer license.
Yeah.
But no, so I have a prediction. Why don't we just TikTok this?
All right, let's do it.
Dart is dead.
Okay, all right. I think that's probably pretty sound.
They may not say anything, but I don't think we're going to see much, if anything, about Dart.
What about anything about Go?
I think Go will have a session or two, because I think we even have a small but enthusiastic community that listens to the show that are really into Go. They're doing boring stuff like data analysis or whatever, but it is gaining some traction. I also think that native client will have a nice portion of the show. Yeah.
You when you mean show, you don't mean the keynote.
I mean just the whole week
conference. Right? Yeah. I think that's pretty sound. Obviously, you're kind of thinking of stuff that's going to impact developers on a whole. I wonder if Google's going to try to kick off, I think, a new breed, the next generation. I think the messaging they're going to try to get through the keynote is it's time for the next generation of apps, next generation of web apps, next generation of Android apps. I think we might see some firm details on a global web app store for all, sort of like the Google web app store is, only they're going to expand that more.
Yeah, and I think native client will be a big part of that for games. Also, should we talk about the
Google Plus games leak
the
thing?
Play game leak thing.
Yeah. That looks like there's going to have a Game Center / Xbox Live kind of thing / Facebook games. It's going to tie in with Google Plus. Going to use your circles. It's going to be for Android games. What else am I missing?
I mean, there's a lot of device rumors, but I honestly don't care. And
of course, obviously Google Glass, right? They're going to have some stuff on Google Glass. The other rumor is we're going to see the return of the Q 2.0, and they're going to be like, last year we didn't think we had it right, so we decided to pull it, but this year we've doubled down, we've dropped the price in half, and it's going to have boom, boom, boom features.
That, children, is what trolling is all about.
No, I'm dead serious, man.
Are you serious?
I really think this is a hole in their system. I mean, everybody can sit here and bash on Apple all they want, but one thing that is absolutely solid is the integration of AirPlay from any iOS device to that Apple TV. Yeah. I mean, man, you just push a button and that sucker works, and that is so nice. And the second display setup everybody wants to be a part of, and all that's all key part of that. And selling content on the Play Store, you've really got to get a way to get that on the big screen and make it super easy. So they need the Q.
Well, I think with it would be, if they're adding this Game Center, and I don't know what to call it yet, so we're going to call it Game Center. If they could beat Apple to the whole, if you don't know Apple TV, it would be amazing if we could play games on the Apple TV via AirPlay using the phone as a remote.
You can't?
Some games you can do AirPlay, but
like
it's not
screen. Yeah.
It's not widely supported, and it's not exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's weak. Yeah.
If they were to release the Q, I think that would be a great avenue for them to explore.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Right. Having said that, I think you're crazy, and I don't think there's going to be another Q.
Well, they need to do something in that area.
I don't think they can. Because the problem is they'd have to make deals with companies that pretty much hate them.
Well, no, that's the beauty, because they're making the deals via the Play Store to Android devices. And then once they make the devices capable of streaming, they don't license that aspect. Like, I haven't heard anything about how Apple has special deals in place to allow AirPlay. I think...
Not AirPlay, but they need a bigger content ecosystem to start, right?
Well,
they need
but they've been spending a year doing that on the Play Store, adding more stuff.
I suppose you could be right. I just don't see that as an area they're going to really push.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's other things that you need to focus on, but
I mean, one thing I'd like to see, and they came out with this last year about how they were going to push updates more frequently. I'd like to see some plan of dealing with the manufacturers and the carriers a little differently.
Yeah. Well,
and I think we said this last year too. It would be nice if they could really bring them all in line.
It would be interesting to see if they announce something at Google I/O saying, the next version of Android, you will not be able to replace the built-in launcher.
So I'm not even thinking about the launcher. I'm thinking about some kind of direct update path. So you don't buy a phone and 3 months later you're stranded on a release that's now.
It can't be done unless they completely redid the way these guys like HTC and Samsung are integrating with the device. Because like in the HTC case, they're literally removing components of the Android settings. They're reorganizing it. So is Samsung. Samsung completely redoes the whole settings panel. All of that. The notification center is completely redone in both of them.
Yeah, I didn't say it was likely. I said it was what I wanted.
Oh, yeah, for sure, right? I mean, absolutely. I mean, I love the...
I would think that is the biggest problem facing Android devs right now, is just the ridiculous fragmentation of device versions. And, once Samsung sells you a phone, they have no interest in supporting you. In fact, they'd rather your phone go out of date in a year, so you buy another one.
Right, and they'll support you for as long as it's absolutely necessary for them to continue to get more sales.
Yeah, and but honestly, I really think this I/O is there's obviously going to be some game stuff on Android, and there's probably going to be some more Android UI improvements and UI components, because if we look starting at I/O last year, if we consider that the start of the Google developer year, they've really been pushing design and UI. They're trying to basically catch up to Apple, and I would say in a lot of ways they have, right? I mean, Google's more recent apps are looking fantastic.
Yes. I'd say it's not so much the way the apps look. This isn't really a big deal. It's not really a big deal, but I've been using Google now on and off since they, launched on the Nexus 7 and then on my Note. And then they released it for iOS, and I played with it on iOS for a few minutes, and it is significantly smoother. It looks better. The animations are better. The tracking, the scrolling is better. Everything about the way not all the functionality is better, but everything about the way it performs, it reacts to my touch is better on iOS. And that is still, I thought Project Butter had solved that problem, but then when you use the two literally side by side, it's kind of glaring.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to see something on that? But I think the problem is literally how Android draws to the screen.
I don't know how much more performance they're going to be able to bleed.
Yeah.
But now, if we're talking about performance, one area that I'm really interested in is the native development kit. I'd like to see some more traction there, especially in relation to this new game API. I do hope there's NDK hooked into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If they're going to push games, you're really not writing your game in Java. I mean, there's going to be a cap there. And it's going to be easier to convert iOS developers to maybe make their game cross-platform, or even just developers in general, right? Because C++ is kind of a common language over, or I should say a common language in that space. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like it's going to be very Chrome-focused, very web-focused, with the exception of games.
I could see that. I mean, I could definitely see that, just because I don't know if it's really in their best interest to keep the pedal to the metal with Android right now. They kind of they've been resistant to change the name. Like they did an update and they didn't give it a new name like they have been, and I'm just I feel like maybe they've gotten some pushback on that.
Well, I think they're trying to slow down just so people don't feel their devices are so far behind. Right? Because just think about it. If you tell someone you're on 4.1 and then 5.0 comes out, you feel really far behind. But if they call it 4.2, then don't you feel a lot better?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why we're getting 4.3. I'm almost sure that's the reason we're doing this smaller naming convention.
So it's also safer to announce a lot of iterations and changes in Chrome OS. That's a safer play.
Yeah, and also let's be fair, Android is not a young project anymore. Android's pretty mature, right? So we're not going to see game-breaking changes because that would break a good portion of the apps.
Mozilla's been making a lot of noise recently about WebGL and games in the browser. We just saw that Epic Citadel demo released via WebGL. That's
fantastic. If you haven't seen that, go check it out, people.
Do you think maybe Google's going to respond to some of that and be like, boom, look at gaming via Chrome?
I think this is going to be a lot of Google I/O is going to be dedicated to gaming because that's also where iOS is kind of kicking the shit out of them.
And it's you're seeing it in the sales of the Sony and Nintendo devices. They're dropping down while the because people are buying these smart devices that can buy $5 games at a pop,
or more common free games, right?
And they want to tie it in with Google Plus more now than ever, where they didn't really have Google Plus, the full Google Plus. They were launching it really last I/O. Yeah. So they didn't really have the full infrastructure ready.
Usage on Google Plus outside of our particular circles isn't good.
Some days I go on there and my main page has only been updated like a couple of times in like a few hours.
Yeah, it's really.
Our tech community is pretty active.
And I think Google.
And as a result, it's kind of it's better in a lot of ways because it's a good crowd.
I love Google Plus only because there's far less spam.
Yeah, and it's much lower noise. Yeah, and you get better, longer posts and image embeds, all that stuff. But you know what? I think can they not? Every Gmail account is going to have a Google Plus account, or does have a Google Plus account. Every Android user is going to have a Google, and every they're going to call it Play Games, I guess. And every Play Games is going to be tied in with Google Plus.
That's just a terrible, terrible name.
Well, it's because it's Play, the Play Store. I hate it. I know, I hate the whole Play thing.
Oh, just stop doing that.
I know.
But no, this might be, when the next Draw Something or the next Words with Friends come out for that market, to force them all to start using Google Plus instead of Facebook would be great for Google.
It is interesting that here we are, another Google I/O in. And there's really still the real, star headline apps that really make a splash. A lot of them are still iOS exclusive launch titles.
But a lot of them are games too, and I think that's why they're focusing on games. I really think.
Well, WordPress is a good example. That's a great. It's a hugely popular game, right? But is there anything specific about it that has to be on iOS? What's that word game called?
Letterpress.
Letterpress, yeah.
Yeah, because it's written on Game Center.
So, and Game Center takes care of the matching, right? Like the turn matching. I bet you, if they introduce something like that with Play,
that's the rumor. The rumor is Play Games is more or less a clone of Game Center with a few extra features. Certainly.
It could mean that next time we're sitting here before Google I/O, they have some, headline or launch titles that are Android exclusives.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, Josh, Ingress doesn't count because it's not. When we're talking the games they need to be mainstream casual. They need to be stuff like your grandma would play.
Ingress, yeah, Ingress.
Ingress does not count.
You know what else is a Google exclusive is what? Any of the other custom apps that they make and then release on a small limited beta scale? Yeah, that's right. That's also been exclusive to Android.
We love our beta tag, don't we, Google?
I'm not trying to disparage them, but it is kind of interesting that here we are a year later and it still hasn't happened despite quite the splash they made last year. I have
some faith. I think
the other problem is, and it is better this year, but it's still a large chunk of users is they're on Android 2.x.
To me, that's the real problem, right? They can add all this extra game functionality, which will help.
Yeah, but it's like they're actually like features that people are going to use in like 2-3 years when their contract's up and they have to get a new phone.
You know that expression, lipstick on a pig? And I'm going to get the hate mail.
No, I'm not. It's not that because genuine.
See, to me, it is until they could solve the root problem of taking control of their platform and forcing upgrades, or letting the user decide. Just like iOS does, and just like Windows Phone. Even the way Microsoft does it is better than the way Google does it.
Well, here's the thing. So it's not, your analogy kind of works, but what they're doing is they're announcing features and pretending like you can have, like the mass market and developers can write for them today. And the reality is the top 5% of Android users, or whatever it is, top 20%, which maybe is enough, but the top 20% will get the new feature phones, the new smartphones that have this stuff. Everybody else is going to be 2 to 3 years behind. iOS comes along, and maybe they don't offer all the same functionality. They don't offer it as fast as Google does, but in actual reality, it gets to the users faster. So there's kind of an interesting mix here, because the way their direct update model works,
this is a real problem, because when you're, and I know this from experience, when you're trying to get someone to sign a contract for an Android project, they're more than happy to use the crappier UI language. They're more than happy.
I got a client right now that they're testing for Android, and they went out and bought the crappiest 2.x phone they could buy. They're not even trying it on the 4X devices, which, by the way, means they're not taking advantage of Chrome on Android, which would solve a ton of problems.
Brutally honest, every Android project I've done in 2013 has not targeted the newest APIs. I've been writing for 2.2 or 2.3.
It's kind of a clown show where they're all just putting on an act showing them how it's almost an act to get people excited for the platform and to put on a show for the market. Because in reality, unless you can get, I mean, you know what? Nexus users, great. You're going to have it. That's awesome. How many of those phones do they sell a month? I mean, it's pales in comparison to what the other devices that are shipping older versions of the operating system sell.
And don't get me started on the Kindle Fires. This is getting very negative very fast.
Good, because the next few weeks are going to be nothing but, Google love, because I/O is going to be pretty cool, and they're going to announce something awesome, and we're all going to be excited. So, I mean, it's okay to have a little reality check beforehand.
Oh, so I do hold out some faith, like I said earlier, that they will come on stage and be like, you know what? We made a deal with Samsung. We wheelbarrowed some gold bullion, and they're going to over-the-air upgrade all their phones to at least 4.0.
It's not a matter of, first of all, Samsung doesn't even have the staff to do it. Second of all, those phones are too limited in resources to do it. Some of them don't even have a new enough ARM processor.
So then maybe Google has a consumer education problem. Because as much as it's tough, right? Because, even a 3GS can get iOS 5. I think it can even get 6 now.
No way. Wow.
I'm pretty sure it can. I know it can get 5 for a fact.
Well, and I know the 4 can. The 4 can get 6.
4 can get 6.
I don't know how it runs on there, but I know it's possible.
It runs fine. It's actually one of my test devices. But
that's a 3-year-old phone.
Yeah. You know what it is for me? Every year I've been watching Google I/O, I get excited. And then I realize I can never pitch these new APIs to anybody. Because we start talking, the conversation invariably gets to market percentage, right? Install base. And
really, who they need to be selling to is to the mobile handset makers.
Yeah, that's unfortunately. Then we'd have these weird compromises like we've talked about with Firefox and with Ubuntu that kind of don't feel right for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this got very sad.
Yeah, wow, that's not what I was expecting at all, to be honest with you. But let's see if we can turn this train around, huh? I would say. These are all opportunities for Google to announce something to fix. And
yeah, to be clear, I like Android, and I'm very, very strongly considering picking up an HTC One.
And we scratched this from the lineup, but just a quick, there was Wired had an interview with the new head of Android, and one of the things he said is he thinks that it is one of their upcoming challenges for Google is to make Android more consistent and sane for users. And you can interpret that how you want.
Yes, the term Android should mean something. When someone tells you they have an Android phone, you shouldn't need to say what version.
Right.
It should just be Android.
Gosh, I was trying to turn this into a positive thing. But by the way, I mean, I'm really on the fence on the HTC One because a few of the things I'm hearing about the way the UI has been customized sound very limiting. And it sounds like
very iOS-like. Have you taken a look at some of the video teardowns?
Yeah, exactly. Some of the stuff that bugs me about iOS, they're doing through HTC Sense, and I look at that and I go, that is so the wrong direction. That is like you're taking away the reasons I want this platform, but you're making a great, compelling device. And so, do I root it? Am I forced to root it and run custom ROMs? I mean, that is
don't do that. No, I mean, I know I'm coming off as Google bashing here, but if we have time, I'm going to get into it. There are a lot of problems with iOS too. And any Android manufacturer who's skinning Android to look like iOS in 2013 is crazy.
They're doing it wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I like the HTC One not because it looks like iOS, but because it's finally not a cheap plastic Android phone.
Exactly. And HTC, I've been a very happy HTC customer in the past.
And I'll be honest, I wanted a Samsung S4.
Yeah.
I took a look at it and I was like, this is garbage. I mean, it's obviously a powerful phone, but it just feels kind of cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe they'll announce the next Nexus phone at I/O. I would be very tempted to see that.
I think it's the current Nexus with more carrier support.
LTE. And maybe LTE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I mean, if that were on Verizon or even Ting, I'd probably pick it up.
Oh yeah, dude. If they come out with a new Nexus Rev and they put it on Ting, I'll buy it hands down. I
think that would be beat out the one for me.
Do you think they'll rev the tablet hardware?
That's the other big rumor, that they're going to go with I think a higher capacity tablet or something.
Yeah, and
which doesn't make sense, right? Because Google's all about keeping your data in the cloud, so why would you care?
Yeah, I wonder about that too, and I think they're probably more incentive to keep working on the screen, to keep working on the thinness. Then if they came out with the Nexus 7, maybe with a 1080p screen, or actually the Nexus 7 I think has a pretty good resolution on it now. But if they made it, but if they made it a little thinner, where is my Nexus 7? Somewhere, but I haven't been using it very much anymore. Now it's comparatively not enough difference between this and my Note, but my kids love it, and so I keep it around quite a bit, and it's a pretty good little device. But
so I really like my Nexus 7.
It's got a big black border around it, and it's a little thick. If they made that glass to the edge of the screen and made it thinner, I think I might be tempted to buy another Nexus 7, and then I just say, here, kids, this is yours permanently. Because they're like what, $199. I mean, it's not like it's cheap, but I mean it's cheap enough. And if Google kept this trend of keeping these Nexus devices at a reasonable price with the stock Google Android updated directly experience, man, maybe they'll just start pushing the market towards that via competition.
I've got it. They opened the Google store. They put them right near Apple stores.
Right, which are right next to the Microsoft stores.
Exactly. So that way, when you're shopping for anything, you go 1, 2, 3, and you kind of pick one.
Man, nice. Now if Canonical gets in on the game, I'm set. And
the best thing is, it would put Best Buy out of business, which is always in everybody's interest.
That's true. Oh.
I'm bitter about Best Buy.
You know
what it is? Every time I go there, I need to buy like RAM, and they charge triple the price for no reason.
Can I give you my long shot prediction on I/O before we move on?
Let's hear it.
My long shot is the Motorola X phone. Few people have mentioned it. Google made this Motorola purchase a while ago. They've done nothing of interest with it. Wouldn't it be awesome if they came out with this slamming Motorola device that looked a little retro but was still cool and had some sort of great new feature integrated in with it, running the freshest version of Android? Maybe it's got 8 cores in this bad mamma jamma LTE.
So after they announce that phone and get on their pig and fly away. Motorola, that was a mess, right? That was a straight patent play.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't know if Motorola has I just don't know. Because Google claims publicly that there is a firewall between Motorola and Google.
Yeah.
And who developed the last Nexus 4?
The Nexus.
It was Samsung.
Yeah,
no, it was
LG.
Samsung?
The current
LG.
Nexus phone is an LG.
Right.
Yeah, that is weird, right? But maybe that's because Motorola needed time, and Samsung.
It's because if you remember when they did the purchase, there was all this uproar among the manufacturers that Google would show favoritism to Motorola. Well, remember the Chinese government wanted to talk to them about it.
And I've also heard that some people at Google went into Motorola and said, we need to scrap this manufacturing process. We're going to retool it. I don't know, man.
I don't know if Motorola has it. I really don't.
I would be ashamed to see them drop out like this because they've been in the phone industry for a long time, and I thought they've introduced some interesting things.
Yeah.
Like the dock and stuff.
To me, the Nexus 4 on more carriers makes more sense because the biggest limiting factor for the Nexus 4 is that it's on T-Mobile.
Womp womp.
Right. Because I almost bought one, then I realized it's only on T-Mobile.
So I had an idea. Are you done with your Google I/O predictions?
Let's do it. Let's move along.
I had an idea. We should maybe kick around a few WWDC predictions just because as it gets closer, you're going to start entering NDA territory.
And I can't talk about it.
Right.
So I have a wish list.
Okay.
So, and this is my same wish list from last year. Shows how much they hate me. You know how in an Android app you can be like hit a button and it brings up all these other apps that can interact with your data.
This is my #1 thing I was going to say. The share features in Android need to be
and you can do this on Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8 as well. They call it contracts.
Yeah.
Android calls it intents. iOS can't do that. Now you can ghetto rig some stuff that a lot of Instapaper has an API. A lot of developers doing some crazy stuff with Dropbox to kind of tweak this in themselves, but really they need the concept of intents or contracts, or I'm sure they won't use either term. So pathways sounds like an Apple term for it.
Or services, kind of like they have on OS 10. You know, where you can...
No, don't do it like services on OS 10.
Maybe that's what they'll call it, though. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it is a real... If you look at the API, I would say actually Google does it best. The intent API is really nice.
Yeah, okay.
Because it just goes based on the data.
Well, I mean, they totally just wholeheartedly ripped off the notification center, so you never know, right?
That was my next thing. Continue to rip off Google's notification center and don't stop.
Well, you know, don't copy like they have on the Nexus 7 where it's a split menu. That drives me so crazy.
Now, I actually have a question because you're a bigger Android guy. Is that on all tablets or is it just the Nexus 7?
I don't have another Android tablet, but I think it's on all tablets running the latest Android.
Okay.
Because it's not on the phones running the latest Android.
It's not on my Galaxy Nexus, no.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with it, so they've split the notification menu in two, and when you pull down on the right side, it's quick access to settings. The concept's actually kind of clever. I mean, I totally get what they're going for. It makes it really quick to get to certain stuff, and I like that. And I would actually be looking at what it tells you, but my damn Nexus isn't turning on. There it goes. So when I pull it down, on the right-hand side, I get brightness, auto-rotate my Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, battery settings, and then on the left-hand side, I get all my notifications. The problem is I have muscle memory where I just kind of reach up and pull down, and also both menus now look incomplete. They look half done.
So it's been like this for about 4 months on my Nexus 7, and I get it wrong every time.
Yep.
It's just very not intuitive for me.
It's way better on my Note 2, the way Samsung's customized it. Har, interesting, go figure. Is on my Note 2, I pull it down, and all of those same settings, they're just along the top in a horizontally scrollable bar. And I can get access to all of the same stuff in one menu. It's way nicer.
Yeah, so, yeah, they really, I don't know why they did that. But,
So don't do that.
So my next wish list item is actually another one from last year and another ripoff of Android. I love the widget concept on Android. I love it from an API perspective, and I love it as a user. And for those who don't know, I mean, Chris, you use Audible all the time.
Oh, dude, I love the Audible widget. Oh,
yeah, it's fantastic.
It's the best thing for when I'm driving, too, because then I could just unlock my phone and tap.
When I was not carrying the iPhone 5 day-to-day, I was using, I think, Downcast again on the Nexus Galaxy, or Galaxy Nexus. And they have a widget, too, which is fantastic. You can fast-forward, play, whatever, right from your home screen. Right? It was just great. It sounds like a stupid thing to want, but it gives a great experience, and you know what? There's no reason not to have it.
So the widgets thing is so slick. As long as, you know, and early Androids, you could actually bog your system down by having too many widgets. But now, like, I go to one side of my screen, I've got all my Bitcoin widgets where it tells me all the different prices and all my different Bitcoin apps. I go to another side, it's like, here's my Google Plus feed, here's my Twitter feed, and here's my priority inbox in Gmail. And the way all the different apps can provide a widget that can augment that application's functionality is so nice. It really got to get that on iOS.
It really is.
And what's kind of funny is they were one of the first desktops on the Mac side
to have widgets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they took off like gangbusters for a while.
It's very, very disappointing that they haven't done that. And I kind of expected it for iOS 6, and it didn't come, and I was sad.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it... So the problem for me with iOS is...
You don't have side-loaded apps or anything like that? Wouldn't you love to...
I don't care about that. In fact, I don't
wouldn't that make your
that.
life as a developer easier if somebody could just go check a box and then...
It does. I mean, one of the most contentious part of what I do is dealing with a service called TestFlight, because that's how I code sign apps and send them to clients for beta builds. Sometimes they go down and people get upset.
Oh.
Or sometimes there's a processing delay. It happens. I mean, yes, if they could do something with the code signing overall, that would be great, right? Make code signing less of a thing, but it's not going to happen.
And this isn't OS stuff, but how about restructuring some of these Nazi policies in the store? There's just too many things. Well, it is getting to the point, and I know. See, when I say this kind of crap, our shows then get don't get good ranking, but I'm just sick. I'm so sick and tired of great ideas. Or when I hear somebody who sends in an email to me and says like, "Hey man, I'm thinking about doing this app and I want to do it on Android and iOS," and I always think in the back of my mind, "Yeah, man, that's going to be awesome if it gets approved, if they let you do it."
Well, I wouldn't say they necessarily need to roll back the policy. I think they need to be more consistent.
Well, that's for sure.
So what's good for company A should be good for company B. And we see, and I've seen that personally a lot, where it was good on Monday, but it's not good on Tuesday, kind of thing, and they throw you out.
And I take, here's an example. So, if I wanted to do a Jupiter Broadcasting iOS app and I wanted to have donate buttons, how could I do that without going through Apple and letting them take a 30% cut?
I don't think you can do donations at all.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that, but
I mean, there's just so much crap that they need to sort of like there's so much stuff that when these devices were not even a gigahertz and they had 256 megabytes of RAM and very small local storage, I totally grokked why you needed to be very strict and very particular. But now these things are starting to get very powerful, and there really is not the demand there used to be to lock these down. I grant you battery is still an issue, but it's time to start modernizing some of this stuff. And I would love to see them say, you know what? Just, they don't have to come right out and say, yeah, some of this stuff was because Steve wanted it that way, but they come out and say, we're kind of changing things a little bit. It's a spring cleaning here at Apple, and we're sort of renovating how we sort of handle things. Wouldn't that be refreshing?
It would be nice. I mean, but practically speaking, there are more important things they could do, such as fix iCloud.
Yeah,
or get rid of it. Because, I mean, they're not going to go back and change their policy, right? They're just not. They're always going to reserve the right to reject your app or pull your app out of the store for any reason or no reason.
Right.
Just because their legal team, that's how lawyers work. You're basically operating on faith. And it's the same with Android, by the way. They just choose not to do it in most cases. I mean, it's weird. In a lot of ways, Android's a more exciting platform. Certainly when I look at the APIs and I play around with it on the weekends, or even if I do a small Android project, it's definitely the more fun platform to work on. But there's also because, you don't have to worry about the arbitrary rejection that might come.
Well, and you're trapped between two worlds. As a contractor, your day job is pulling you down into Android too. But if you were an idealist indie developer who was just going to target the high-end Google Android Play market, the market that actually makes money, you could go for the newer toys.
And that's the thing. So I should rephrase what I said. When I'm playing on the weekend, I'm playing with the newest Android APIs. But when I'm, quote, working, it's almost always Android 2. Right, it's Android 2.2 in most cases.
That's, the situation I find, equivalencies that I find myself in often.
And, it would be nice if I was developing high-quality Android apps that were for the Nexus 7. But in reality, I'm still developing for the HTC Aorus.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of the times the iOS projects are more attractive because
even the phone from 3 years ago has iOS 6.
Because there's just a whole layer of crap I don't need to deal with.
Yeah, okay. Now, before we go too far off WWDC,
right?
We're probably killing our audience with the Apple talk because they freaking hate it.
Well, you know what, though? We did talk about a lot of back-end stuff recently.
And by the way, a virtual Ubuntu developers conference kicks off tomorrow, streamed online. People can go look that up.
Should share a link.
They'll probably be talking about...
there is one other area that Apple I wish they would fix.
Yeah.
Auto layout. Totally broken. And this goes back to actually our feedback. Auto layout is, so iOS has always been pixel perfect, so where you're setting frames at recs with actual hard logical pixels, right? As opposed to the relative layouts on Android.
Yeah.
So now we have this auto layout system, which is supposed to help you do relative layouts, but it doesn't really work well. And it's incredibly complicated to get to work right. You're supposed to use it through Interface Builder, but most of the options aren't available in Interface Builder. Better yet, Interface Builder, as you compile, changes what you put based on what it thinks you meant. And it's just very frustrating. And what ends up happening is you end up doing a lot of if checks for screen size and redrawing everything based on recs pixel perfect for different screens. I would like auto layout to be fixed because that is stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, Android has been able to have good relative layouts for What is it, like 3 years?
Well,
at least?
they've had they've had more of a compelling reason, and until like
Till the 5, it
Yeah.
wasn't an issue on iOS. Yeah.
exactly, even before, even when they introduced Retina, you could just do pixel doubling.
Well, yeah. So when you're calculating your recs, it's all logical pixels, right? Not physical pixels. So yeah.
I put a link, by the way, for the Ubuntu Developers Summit, thanks to Josh in the chat room, so people can find that in the show notes if they're curious, because that will be streamed online, and they have a chat room. They're very interactive. It's very cool. You can actually get in there via the chat and just ask questions to the developers. It's pretty cool, as long as you suppose that you don't troll. Can I make 2 crazy WWDC predictions?
Okay, do it.
And then we'll, first, absolutely crazy, harebrained, just going to toss it out there, trials for apps, because they need to compete with Microsoft. Apple selectively picks what they compete with from both Microsoft and Google. I mean, they watch them and they pick, and I think they're going to do some sort of trial system. Maybe. We'll see, because I think that will help people bring up prices in the iOS App Store, is if you and the Mac App Stores. If I can run a trial, then you can also charge more. So I think
I would love to see trials. Yeah.
I think you'll see that, and then maybe you'll see Adobe, and well, probably not. They have the cloud thing.
Never.
And my last crazy prediction, and this is just the one I'm kind of hopeful before. I had a hard drive die in my Hackintosh over the weekend that does all the recordings for all of our shows. Kind of went into panic mode because I thought I had lost it, and in order not to miss LAS and Coda Radio, if I hadn't had a backup drive, I would have had to go down to the Apple Store and buy a Mac Pro. Because I need the OS and operating system, and I need to load all of this hardware in there with PCI cards and all of this stuff. And a Hackintosh sometimes takes a couple of days to install to get it just right. And that would have meant missing LAS and Coda Radio and potentially Plan B. So I had this moment where I thought, geez, I'm going to have to go put a Mac Pro on credit, and I dreaded it. I would love to see them update the Mac Pro at WWDC, because I've talked to so many developers who say, I need the desktop performance, I need the multiple drives. I've talked to so many video editors who are like, no, I still need the Mac Pro. And even as somebody who dreads to pay that premium price, and somebody who utilizes Hackintoshes as much as possible to avoid it, even as a professional, I acknowledge, as a tool in my toolbox, I would really like to have that updated. So we'll see. Maybe it'd be a great conference to do
I've
that
been
at.
holding off on updating my workstation Mac for that specific reason.
I mean, I need 4 or 5 drives. I need 2 PCI Express 16X cards. So it can't be an iMac. It can't be a Mac Pro. And I need OS 10. So you tell me what I do. I do a Hackintosh because they won't update the damn machine.
Though, didn't Tim Cook say we would see Mac Pros before 2014?
Quote, I believe was, we'll have something for our Pro customers in 2013.
I mean, if they were ever going to have an event for the Pro line of machines, the Dev Conference would be it. I mean, having said that, I do most of my work on an Air.
Oh yeah, let me be clear. If there were other alternatives, and let me absolutely be clear on this, I'm always constantly researching and evaluating other alternatives, and I have for years, and I spent years selecting.
Well, there's one app you can't get away from, right? That's what the problem is.
No.
Oh.
If it was one app, I would do anything within my power to replace the one app. That's the problem. It's not one app. It's an entire tool chain. It's an entire workflow. It's an entire fundamentals from top to bottom that requires this setup. And I'm slowly trying to replace it with an alternative tool chain, but it'll take another year or so before it's ready. And I've got to do something in the meantime.
Oh, that's kind of terrible.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we'll see. I hope they update that, because that would solve a problem for me, because I do need to buy something. And, of course, I hate to spend the money because it's an outrageous amount for what you get, but it is at least a tax write-off.
That's true.
It's a business expense, but yeah.
Hey, I have a crazy question.
Huh.
The newest iMacs, I don't think you can use them as monitors for Windows PCs, can you?
I don't think so. It's on Thunderbolt.
But you can definitely use the old one I have sitting next to me. Chris, I have to go.
Oh, what?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh.
So I've been searching for a PC monitor.
Yeah.
And I just realized I've been staring at a 27-inch iMac or 20-inch iMac for like a year that I'm not using.
Right.
Because it's old. But I'm pretty sure you can just pop that in display mode and it's a monitor, right?
On the older ones, I think so.
Oh my God.
I did make that monitor pick a few episodes back. I know it's from that. I know. They're dodgy, I know. But I love it. I know, and I know a couple of people have bought them now.
That's really shady.
Yeah. Because they ship it from Korea, directly.
I love when things are shipped from Korea.
It is South Korea, though, so at least you're...
Oh, well, at least I'm not,
Yeah.
supporting Islam.
I don't think it comes from any of Kim Jong's factories.
Well, I thought if you bought one from North Korea, Kim actually comes and he's like, hey, so let's play some Halo.
We have like a couple of minutes before we got to run. Do you want to touch on the Ouya stuff?
Yeah, so I have a new strategy for checking on my Ouya shipping. I bitch about it on the show.
Oh, nice. Good. So you still haven't gotten the shipping notification or what? What's the situation?
No, so I got the ship notification tracking number still doesn't work.
So that means they've notified the shipping place that they're going to be shipping it, but they haven't actually put it on the truck yet.
But to be fair, they did follow up. It's in Hong Kong. Or it's in, I should say, Asia.
Okay. All right. I mean,
I think they said, yeah.
Be honest, as time passes, are you getting less and less excited?
So part of the plan was that as an early backer, I was going to have the console nice and early.
Yeah, right. Well, didn't they just announce that they
got 15 million from Kleiner Perkins.
Yeah.
And they're pushing the ship date of the commercial versions to the end of June.
Which is me.
Which kind of actually helps me, right? Because I wanted there to be a lead time. But it's already May 12th, May 13th. That's not quite the lead time I was looking for. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
See, this is what Google should. This is what the Q should be. Right? Only a little better because of more money behind Google. A little nicer. And, of course, fully integrated with Android devices for a remote control with also controllers. I mean, if they did Q 2.0 and they made it an Ouya competitor, because otherwise...
It would be a monster. It would be a powerhouse.
Right. And don't you think otherwise somebody is going to take Android and eventually the Ouya is going to have to be its own...
And not somebody. It's going to be Amazon again.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Amazon is supposed to be coming out with a phone.
Wouldn't it serve Amazon better to be a set-top provider with all of the Prime content they have, and now they're also doing their own productions?
Yeah, which I haven't watched. Are they any good?
I've heard bad things. But they would take their own Android, they'd fork it, and see, this is crazy for Google not to fill these holes before these other companies do, and then fork their platform.
I kind of wonder if Google just doesn't care. If they're kind of like, you know what, we have our system, we're pleased with it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they really did make Android for anybody to use any way they want at all, but it seems like they keep trying to change it in ways to make money. I don't know.
You know what, though, Chris, I'm obviously still interested in Android. The Google devices are usually at the top of the list of what I'm looking at. From a personal perspective, obviously.
Right, yeah, of course.
I mean, the HTC One, I'm shocked that I'm considering an HTC One since I had an Aorus. Which, if anybody's had an Aorus... Such a bad device. Truly awful. Chris, I don't know where this leaves us, but sad.
Well, no, remember, these are opportunities for them to solve the problems, and we're just being real because...
Right. So these aren't issues, right? These are opportunities for improvement.
Exactly. And as everybody knows, so before we go and sniff the beautifully smelling candles of Google I/O, we have now sniffed the coffee grounds to reset our palate.
Yeah, and I'm going to probably be the most excited one if they do some native client stuff.
They're going to. That's almost a for sure. I'd put Amazon coins on that, my friend. Amazon coins on that.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that for a reason.
All right, Mr. Dominic, let's get out of here. What do you say?
Yeah, let's go. I have an iMac to hook up.
Where should people find you throughout the week? At the new blog address, right?
Oh, they can find me at DominicM.com.
Ooh, DominicM.com. Have to update the link in the show notes as well as links to his Twitter and Google+, as well as mine in the show notes. Don't forget, Coda Radio is live over at jblive.tv at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and jblive.info for the audio. Then we're available for download Mondays later on in the afternoon Pacific time. All right, Mr. Dominic, thanks for the great show.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week's episode of Coda Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.